Okay. Welcome to Guy Aitcheson's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattooers, apprentices, artists, and just the curious are welcome to come, learn, share, inspire each other, and ultimately get better tattoos and do better tattoos every day. This is a Reinventing the Tattoo podcast episode with Amy Nicholls of the Apprenticeship Diaries in an interview with Guy Aitchesion. Obviously, there's a ton to talk about with apprenticeships. It's changed, the landscape has changed tremendously, and it's going to be fun to catch up. Amy has been interviewing apprentices and mentors, not only in the tattoo world, but all sorts of other crafts. So she's getting great perspectives, and it'll be a fun conversation. Now, not sure exactly how you are getting this. It could be on the brand new podcast. You could be watching it live in YouTube or on Facebook. Who knows? But the main place to catch all of the Reinventing the Tattoo content will be in the Reinventing the Tattoo community. We have an app. It's pretty awesome, if we don't say so ourselves. You could catch it at either of the app stores, the Apple App Store or the the Google Play Store. If you want to go straight to community.reinventingthetattoo.com, you can go straight through your computer, and after you register, you'll notice the very first link is the events link, because we do this stuff live all the time, 3 to 7 times a week. So we welcome you to join live. You can chat in the chat rooms, ask us questions and whatnot. Many of these programmings are designed specifically for people to join us. Not this one, but those are the Reinventing the drawing groups. They happen on Sunday afternoons, 1 p.m. and with Jason Leeser. God damn it, I'm never going to get that right now. I got the bug in my head. And then on 9 o'clock on Monday morning with Jake Meeks from the Fireside Tattoo Network. Let's see, noon every Thursday, we have the Tattoo Collecting Podcast with Fawn Baker and Jordan Ruckus. And all of this live programming is always available on demand replays in the library. So if you go to that app, there's the event link. There's also a library link with all the videos that are. It's amazing. It's practically 5 to 7 shows a week, and they're all quality content, perfect for putting on in the background of your tattoo shop front room, or if your client's squirming, you could put some of this programming on. Speaking of squirming clients and programming to put them at ease, you can see behind us here, we've got an Android Jones visual feast. If you could hear it, it would be Aja Lu doing an amazing live soundtrack. The replay is available, and on the replay page is a spot. If you put in your address and let us know when you started professionally tattooing, we'll send you a bag that's got raw pigments samples, as well as Cheyenne cartridges and maybe a couple other goodies. So to get this goodie bag, you want to go to reinventingthetattoo.com/equinox. Sign up for the free replay. You'll get the videos. There's also an art jam there where we have the video, and Guy led a whole round of psychedelic artists, and they talked about lots of fun stuff. And then you can go to that watch page and get the goodie bags. Let's see, what else do I need to catch up on? I have a whole script here to make sure I catch all the really good points. Upcoming professional development and on-demand professional development. Every Monday at 9 o'clock, Guy Aitchesion leads the Reinventing the Tattoo subscribers group, where people do homework through the course of the week that's based off of the Reinventing canon. It used to be the 3-ring binder, and then it was the book and the DVDs, and then it got online about 8 or 9 years ago, and now it's revamped in a brand new format that is like an educational online format. It's awesome. It's broken down into courses, all the videos are in all the right spots, and Guy leads Monday exercises every 9 o'clock. So when you post up your exercise homework, then he'll actually critique you, let you know his thoughts, and so will the rest of the Reinventing crew that meets every Monday at 9 o'clock. If you go to courses.reinventingthetattoo.com, you could sign up. It's $300 a year. It is absolutely well worth it, because again, you're getting to work alongside some amazing artists, and it doesn't make a difference what skill level you're at. There's a lot of great people in there. There's a lot of people that are just starting off, and sometimes Guy will show off some of his first tattoos and flash sets and stuff. It's great because it's very welcoming. You don't need to be, but inherently everyone's welcome. So let's see. So that's the Reinventing courses. We also have Andre Malcolm is doing a koi arm sleeve or koi sleeve design course. So if you want to see how he does it with, while he does it before your very eyes, Q&A. If you're drawing alongside him, then you'll get to a chance to get critiqued. This is happening in 2 or 3 weeks. If you go to courses.reinventingthetattoo.com, it's right there, Andre Malcolm's koi sleeve design class. We have replays. BJ Betts has a lettering class up there. Bob Tyrell's got an 11-hour black and gray portrait webinar. It's pretty awesome. Okay. Whew, almost there. Bear with me. Upcoming special live events. This Sunday at 8 o'clock, we have Tent Talk with Robert Shaw. And this week's guest is the unbelievable Penny Funk. So if you are a fan of tattoo history, you are absolutely not going to miss this. You could, again, catch some of the previous Tent Talks in those library folders. They're pretty awesome. They're bringing the history straight to us. It's awesome. Real world events. I'm going to cruise through these. We've got October, because we're in the middle of a pandemic and we don't actually have that many details. October 3 to the 6th this year is going to be Paradise BYOB, which means bring your own brains, brushes, beets, bud, booze, or berries if you're vegan. We're basically going to go there and share. Less than 100 people per room. The advertising pitch really is stay home because we'll be webcasting a lot of things, and there are only really 100 rooms anyways. Let's see, November 12th to the 14th is the Brussels Tattoo Convention. We'll be bringing a little mini Reinventing the Tattoo event there. Nick Baxter, Ivana, and I will be doing seminars. We will be beaming in either a drink and draw or a group paint jam, or I don't know, we'll be doing some cool things. We will have Reinventing subscriber meetups. So if you're a paid subscriber, we'll have exclusive meetups for you. And of course, we'll have at least one community Reinventing party where everyone's invited. And again, we'll be beaming back and forth and all around. It's going to be a lot of fun. November 12th to the 14th in Brussels. July, this is next year, so 2022 is going to be a save the date, July 8th to the 10th, 2022, not this year. I've been told not to talk about these dates until after this July is over, but we have to so that you save the dates. The Rock River Tattoo Art Expo is going to be in Rockford, Illinois. TattooArtExpo.com is the website, and if you go straight there, right now, while you're watching live, it'll be a little bit outdated info because I haven't edited it yet. But if you're watching this in the future, you'll be getting all of the latest info for the show. It's going to be pretty awesome. Guy's going to lead up a Reinventing track. We'll also have like 60 tattooers or maybe more. We'll see. Beautiful resort on a river. Cliff Breakers is the resort name. In July, we'll be at the Rubber City Tattoo Festival. Tony Urbanic's running that. It's in... somewhere in Pennsylvania, I think. We'll have more details. This is all next year. Point being, we are starting to plan events. So if you are interested in having Reinventing beam into your event or sponsoring the channel or whatever, you can get a hold of us. Okay, speaking of sponsors, I want to let you know we've got Dermalize on board. We're very excited. Alex DePasse's, it's a healing wrap, and it's known as D-Lize Pro in the United States. And if you're still using a cling wrap that's not breathable, this Dermalize, it's great because it is actually designed to heal wounds. It's breathable. You want to make sure you watch the videos. They've got lots of videos about its application and how to use it, but it is a fantastic way to heal, and a lot of great artists use it. So we're pretty excited to be having them do some interviews with some of our amazing Dermalize artists. So yes, that's Dermalize, D-Lize Pro in the United States. Rawpigments.co are acrylic-free and vegan inks. You can make sure or rest assured knowing that they're getting their pigments really straight from one of the very few sources that exists. It's Raw Pigments. You will get samples of them if you do that reinventingthetattoo.com/equinox view page, and you fill out the forms. You can get some samples from them, and it's Cheyenne cartridges. Okay, let's see. Inkjet Stencils. If you go to inkjetstencils.com and you go to their catalog page, they have inks that you put into an Epson continuous ink printer and stencil paper that make for great stencils. You edit your images on the iPad and on the computer, and then you print out your stencils. It saves wear and tear on your hands, saves you a little bit of time, and saves you a little bit of money. Inkjetstencils.com. We're very happy they keep all of this programming available to you for free. Make sure you go to tattooeducation.com and guyaitchesion.com. This is Guy's brainchild, and you want to check out the stuff that he has for sale and all of his paintings and shit. It's all pretty cool. And then lastly, I'm running tattoonnow.com, technology for tattooers. You can shoot us a contact if you have any questions about technology. Okay, Fireside Tattoo Network and the Apprenticeship Diaries are our affiliates. I'm going to hop in the background. Let us know that this is working for you, and in the chat rooms. And then if you have any questions or whatever, put them in there. I will hop in maybe in the half-hour mark, or if there's a lull, or at the end if they're rolling, and make sure that you can get your questions answered. Okay, thank you. Whew. I'm going to hop in the background here.
Thank you, Gabe, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Some of you are apprentices, some not. I remember my own apprenticeship vividly. It was one of the most important periods of my life. And, you know, every day, 33 some odd years later, when I'm tattooing, I think about things I learned then. So excited to have Amy Nicholls of the Apprenticeship Diaries joining us today. Hey, Amy.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm very excited. Just a little caveat, I play moments of interviewing in my head regularly of like where people are interviewing me, talking about ego. We were talking a little pre-show. So this is really awesome that I'm actually being interviewed.
Outstanding. Well, you know, this is important stuff. It really is. And I think that people who are at the very beginnings of their careers, or maybe who are in the midst of a frustrating apprenticeship, can really benefit from hearing this stuff. And there's, of course, all kinds of different frustrating apprenticeships. There's very few that won't have at least some, right? I'm sure you had your own.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was something that Jake Meeks and I talked about a little bit, and you guys aired it. It was a wonderful thing to listen to, because I didn't realize that it would, you know, go that far. I was just, you know, drawing with him one morning and we just started talking. But yeah, like he asked me why I did the podcast, and he's like, was it your apprenticeship? I said, no, it was actually trying to mentor someone that got me there, because I thought that I was picking a good person to mentor. Not that she wasn't. She's a very successful tattoo artist now, but it was challenging in ways that I did not even fathom. And that's why I really wanted to put it out there, was because on both sides of this, being a mentor and being a mentee, the challenges are, you know, they're epic, and it always changes. This keeps changing. And I think we're in a perpetual state of always wanting to give the next generation a leg up, and knowing what is necessary and what's not necessary within that. And it's really hard to know what somebody needs and what somebody doesn't need, what's abusive, what isn't abusive. So yeah, I thought it was a good observance to, you know, really analyze this thing and keep asking. And just, I know for myself, I'm really stubborn. I've actually had 4 apprenticeships in my life, not apprentices, 2 in hair and 2 in tattooing. So I'm not easily taught. And there's a lot of ego involved in those things. So I thought that, like, analyzing what I really go to when I go to learning, and what is the best kind of information that goes in my head, is usually storytelling. I like it when people tell me a story about something they experienced. And from that, I siphon, you know, the things that I really like and the things that I want. And then I cachet the rest, or I put it in my mind of like, well, that's not really me. Maybe that'll be me. But I don't feel like somebody's telling me what to do. It's more of just like, this is what I did. And now you have this story, this view, and you can go and do with that what you want. So for me to tell stories about people's apprenticeships was kind of like what I marked on. And even that's been hard. Like, getting people to share that has been confronting for a lot of people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you had 2 apprenticeships. What went wrong in the first one?
You mean a tattoo?
Yes.
Nothing went wrong. I actually made it to tattooing. My apprenticeship was very, it was, I guess, old school would be. It was in a biker shop in Kentucky. I was there with a boyfriend that I had followed to Kentucky. And really the issue with the first apprenticeship, like I guess all of them, was me. I was not in alignment with a way of living that was sustainable, personally, professionally. The shop that I was in was, I was kind of grabbed up because I think I was a person who actually had educated talent coming in. And I think the owner, I mean, I don't know, but I think he saw dollar signs with me because I could actually draw. And so to see my portfolio and kind of, hire me up as a person that could then offer a lot more to his shop than was currently there, was what he was hoping for. But once I got to that point, I really realized my value. I realized that I was drawing for other people in the studio. I was doing a lot more than anybody else could do, and I was getting paid the least amount. And then there was this problem between whether or not I was classified as an employee or an independent contractor. And he wanted me to claim myself as an independent contractor for the past year. And I was like, no, that doesn't correlate. I've been an apprentice for the past year. There's no way I'm doing that, because you've been paying me 30%, which I didn't know what the deal would be. Like this was all like me just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going into something, going, I really want to learn this, and somebody going, here's a carrot, keep following it until you get where you want. And then I was finally to a place where I was like, no, I know how businesses are organized. I know how taxes and tax code go. I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot here. I've been your employee this time. If we're looking at the boundaries of tax code and everything, I've been your employee. Now, if we want to discuss a contract moving forward that would have me be an independent contractor, I'm going to need to make a lot more money. And that's where I lost my job. So, and unfortunately in that apprenticeship, it was all walk-in traffic, and there wasn't, portfolios being had. Digital photography was just starting. It was like 2004 or 2005 was the first one. And then I left my entire life in Kentucky all in one moment, because I broke up with my boyfriend at the time and hightailed it back to Maryland. And then from there, I didn't have anything to show for it, because I had spent a year tattooing, learning to tattoo with no portfolio and no real concept of whether or not what I learned was actually correct or not. So I kind of, and I really wasn't at a point where I felt like I could go into another apprenticeship or go into another tattoo realm at that point. I don't know why, but like I just felt like there was some serious personal growth that I had to go through. And I put myself back into therapy for a lot of reasons that were more about why I was in the kind of relationships I was in up into that point, and kind of looking at my boundaries and why they had led me so far outside of what I wanted my life to be, and how I needed to pick that back up. And in that time, I was apprenticing again to do hair. And I went from being an apprentice in hair to a barber, to then being a master barber. And then when I got my second tattoo apprenticeship, that was around 2009, 2010, I was a master barber teaching a barber, trying to replace myself to then tattoo. So I was doing all three all at once. I was mentoring somebody while being mentored and having no life for my second tattoo apprenticeship. So that's how it worked.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, how different were other than hair and skin obviously being completely different things, but the learning processes, the level of professionalism, the structure, etc. How different were these tattoo apprenticeship experiences from the hair apprenticeships?
Very, because you have a very highly regulated profession, which is hair, and one that isn't, which is tattooing. So there's a lot more red tape involved in hair. And also I learned with my dad. My dad was my mentor in hair. So whilst, you know, had there not been so much red tape involved, he might have just taken me under his wing and taught me how to cut hair. We have to actually report to a board. We have to submit, you know, benchmarks of, you know, our learning and hours and all of that stuff. And also I was an employee under him. He classified me as an employee, and he has a whole apprenticeship contract system that he created because, you know, if you're going to spend your time teaching somebody, you want to make sure that you're getting something out of that education as a professional. So he made it a thing where you sign this contract that says that you work for X amount of time, you learn, you get your credentials, your license, and then you owe him 3 years of service after that. That's actually the part of the apprenticeship contract. If you don't fulfill it at any point, whether you get your license or not, there is like a per week rate of money that will equivocate to if you don't fulfill the contract. So he paid me the entire time. I got paid a little over minimum wage the entire time that I was learning to do hair and building a clientele and all of that stuff. I mean, that was very correlated to tattooing. Like the apprenticeship itself, like having grassroots in-house direction from somebody that I then would be working with was very relatable. And learning about people, that, you know, of course, was very relatable. And I can't think of a better way to professionally educate than just on-site education, where you're actually confronting, you know, the people that you're going to actually be working with. You know, like in hair schools or things like that, you have a mannequin, you know, like, and you're doing all this stuff on a mannequin. So
well, here's another question in terms of comparing the two. I know that there's a lot more to the hair profession than meets the eye, but ultimately, was there a big difference in learning curve steepness between the two experiences?
Yes and no. Well, for me, I feel like learning hair really got me over certain hurdles that I think a lot of artists coming fresh from just art as a background didn't have to go over. That regular performance that you have to have when you're meeting with the client, and the timing, you know, like you have to kind of understand how long something takes you to do and regulate the entire interaction as you're doing it, and making sure that everything's kept in alignment with the time that you have to execute things, and that you're kind of keeping yourself in the power position of the experience and taking a lot of the hits for your client and kind of guiding them through the whole thing to kind of create this experience that's awesome. That's something that I got over in hair, and needing to have that kind of dominance in that atmosphere is really important. That I don't think a lot of people, when they think about doing their artwork as a profession, they don't necessarily know how to stand by it sometimes and stand as a professional in that atmosphere and say, okay, I know you don't really know what's going on here, but I do know what's going on. And if you just, you know, if you just kind of walk into this knowing that I'm doing this intentionally to have a success here. Like one of the things that I used to say with my clients all the time was, let's us start this relationship knowing that I didn't get into hair to mess up yours. So let's start right there. I'm looking for the best. I'm gonna talk with you. You have to do consultations, except for they're a lot more quick than in tattooing. You kind of have to digest in like 5 minutes what this person wants, given any number of things they might tell you. Picture reference is definitely helpful. But yeah, all of that kind of stuff, like the consultation, the pace, the need, I would say more than tattooing, the need for you to be liked by your client is essential in hair, because it's about retention. It's not about a one-time performance. It's about multiple performances that happen 6 to 8 weeks. So that's kind of how you build your clientele. So you have to stay in their good favor. So it's a need for you to build on a very personal level with somebody and learn how to interact with them in a way that makes everybody feel really good. And that was something that was different than in tattooing. Whereas I saw in tattooing, I'm like, do you guys even like people? Like, I don't.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, I want to just reiterate something you just said is, I think that ultimately that is what our job is for, is to make people feel good about themselves. And that's what makes a tattoo session successful. The tattoo obviously needs to be very nice, but everything else has to happen too, because I can't tell you how many times I've had a multi-artist collector type come through and I'm looking at their collection like, wow, that piece there is really awesome. And you're like, yeah, man, he was a dick. You know what I mean?
I know, right?
They say. And so really that person didn't do their job, right? They didn't make them feel good. They made them feel tuned out or neglected or unimportant or insulted or something, right? So I feel fortunate that in my own apprenticeship, I learned from Bob Oslin, who had learned from Cliff Raven. I don't know if you're familiar with Cliff, but he was somebody who in the Chicago day, in the 60s and 70s, had people traveling for bodysuits. And there wasn't a lot of that going on back then, right? And so he really had the idea of, I want to make you comfortable. I want to somehow get you to sit through these multiple days. This is not going to be let's see how big your manhood is. He was thinking differently. And so he passed that on to Bob, who passed that on to me. And I can't tell you how much that has served me just as a professional to not be thinking like, sit down, shut up. But, I want the person to know. And I've tried to learn to see the signs when someone's uncomfortable and adjust accordingly, and occasionally check in with them and say, hey, let's try a couple different angles on this armrest now and tell me which one feels best. Instead of asking them, is this okay?
Yeah.
Right? I'd like to try some adjustments. Tell me which one you like the most. Little things like that. And this keeps them coming back. And so you're talking about in the hair profession, you're nurturing a lasting relationship. That's the idea. And this is something I believe that Michelle and I have both succeeded at, in that we're tattooing the same people across 2 and 3 decades. Now they're bringing their adult children to get tattooed. That's not just because of good tattooing, No,
it's true. And that's something that I feel like I brought, actually, if I'm looking at it and I'm giving myself credit, which I tend to do more than probably people would feel comfortable with. I really try to know my value, because we have to sell ourselves, and it's important for us to know that. So not kind of whitewashing a lot of the things that I know I'm bringing to the table that not a lot of people are bringing to it. But I do think that I brought that a little bit to, if not a lot, to my mentor. And my second apprenticeship was just kind of like, hey, I'm coming from this world where we're about this, we're about cultivating this experience and this relationship. And what I'm seeing here in the tattoo, right, like this is not how you treat people. Like, if you really want to work with people, this isn't how you treat people. And I feel like that I helped integrate that a little bit more in the mind of my boss and my mentor at that time. And it really helped, I think, evolve Tattooed Heart Studios into what it is now, which is a great place to get tattooed. I'm no longer working there anymore. And I think my timeline there ended the way it should have. That's a whole other thing. But I'm not mad about it. There's a lot of personal stuff because of how long I worked there, that I care about, but I'm very grateful for that time. But I do think that that's something that I brought into it, was this awareness of like, hey, well, just to give an example within hair, it's about 60% that you know how to cut a good head of hair, and then 40% is you. And I've noticed that just in being in a salon and watching everybody and watching the clients that they have and why their clients come to them. And everybody had the different client. And if somebody left and then you acquired somebody else's client, you kind of learned a little bit about that. So for instance, I had this one client that came from this girl named Kelly at our shop, who is just, as a person who worked with Kelly, you were excited that she was on your schedule at the same time as you, because that's how bombastic and vivacious and energetic. She just infused you with this awesome energy. Just being around her was like awesome. Well, she left our salon and I acquired some of her people, and I'm like going through their hair and I'm like, your hair is uneven here. What's going on there? They're like, oh, I thought so. Well, yeah, clean that up and stuff. And I cut it the way I know to cut hair. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a lot better. And I was like, Kelly was your hairstylist, right? They're like, yeah, I figured there was something off with how she cut my hair, but who really cares? You know, like, because Kelly's just awesome. This person had for years gotten their hair cut unevenly by Kelly just because they didn't care. They didn't care that one side of their hair was off, not even enough to say it and make it a point of their interaction and pay for a haircut. They just loved Kelly. And I got it. I was like, oh, this is not even necessarily about getting a good haircut for you. This is just about getting something that you know you're willing to pay for and that you love every single time you come. And that's what it's really about. And I learned something about sales within that too, is that people they're not hunting the best product. They're not. They're hunting an assurance that they're going to get what they are told they're going to get. And whether or not they're going to consistently get that, they're looking for that kind of connection, because it's hard to find those kind of consistent, trustworthy connections. And you're right. When you see an awesome tattoo and you say, oh, that's awesome, and the first thing the person says is, oh yeah, he was a dick. That is a huge, it makes my heart hurt that was the case, you know?
Yeah. Wasted opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
If the experience had been good along with the tattoo being good, it would have been, you know, a number one, right?
Yeah.
So in the course of podcasting, we've interviewed a lot of people about their apprenticeships. And, you know, of course, people offer apprenticeships for all kinds of different reasons, right? I think that, you know, there's actually probably a few distinct categories of reasons. There's the people that love to surround themselves with apprentices, right? And I think that there's some kind of a need, a compensation. They really want to be, you know, the man or whatever. And then there's some that clearly just need somebody to work for them. You know, my own category was that, you know, my boss had reached a point where he couldn't handle the walk-ins that were coming in. It was a very small shop. He wanted one other person. And somehow he decided he would hire somebody that wasn't already tattooing because he liked my drawings. And I was very fortunate. He had a substance abuse problem. And this worked in two ways. First of all, he was inconsistent as a teacher. He had some great stuff to offer, but that's only when he was on, right? Secondly, he really wanted to get me functional as quickly as possible, which, you know, ultimately that did very much work to my advantage. And he also did not treat me abusively for the same reason, because he knew that I already had the ability to go to any of the other shops. I never once was even asked to scrub the toilet. But I also had to, for a while, put up with showing up the shop and sitting in the door. I've learned to bring a novel, you know, because often he just wouldn't show up. And, you know, with very little knowledge, having to run the shop for days on end, you know, weeks out of my apprenticeship. But anyway, there was that category. And I know that there's some artists that do it because they understand it's going to be a learning experience for themselves. I mean, that's why I teach. And I think that's probably the best reason. And of course, everyone who takes it on is ultimately going to find that reality, right?
That's me. That's me.
So when you took it on, I'd like to hear what you were hoping to learn and how it ended up actually panning out.
Well, I took it on from that space mostly because I couldn't take it on from the space that you were talking about with your mentor, because I didn't own the shop. I was a part of a shop, and I was brought up, you know, obviously one of my first experiences in apprenticing was under my dad. So I believe in legacy. I opted not to have children in my life, but I want to have legacy. So whatever that means about me, I don't know. But I think that it's very true to most human beings. It's just that I chose not to have a kid. So for me professionally, seeing something that I love and wanting to cultivate the next generation of that was kind of the driving force. More than that, I know that being a creative gives me a lot of insights that not a lot of people have, which is basically being able to construct the world around me. So much of what I have wanted to do has been presented by the universe, for lack of a better word, and I've jumped on that opportunity. But these are things that I kind of think about in my brain and try to cultivate. So for me, if I'm working in a studio and I'm kind of destined to work with whoever my boss hires, I want to position myself in something where I have some kind of say in that. And I also want to bring somebody on now that I kind of have a rhythm of what our studio is about. Why not adopt some people that we can actually train and be in-house trained to what our studio is about? And, you know, let's scrap all the ethics over what people are doing over here. This person has to be fine for here. They have to fit here in this space, and we can hire out, we can outsource, but they might not be the greatest of fit. So for me, it was about constructing the reality that I live in, having legacy about something I care about. I really love Tattooed Heart, even though I don't work there anymore. It's the foundation of a lot of what I have learned in tattooing. And I really cared about helping my boss staff his place and have good artists that all work together and all shared together. And so the idea of hiring an apprentice and raising one in-house there, even though I'm not getting any kickbacks from him, I didn't get a pay or anything like that. And in reality, I lost my job. Maybe it was as a result of it. I don't know. But that's fine too, because that's kind of the point of legacy, is that you're kind of, if you do your job well, you're really hoping somebody does come to replace you that is better. So that's fine. You know, like that's cool too. I have a skill set now because of Tattooed Heart that I don't have to have Tattooed Heart anymore. So it succeeded in its course line with me as well, is that it kind of made me into my own entity where I can kind of do what I want with all of this. And part of that is the podcast and, you know, being here with you guys and all of that stuff. But yeah, like that's kind of the evolution of all of it, is that, you know, ultimately, if you do your job really well, you don't stay in play. You have to shift, pivot, and you have to learn different things. So like I said, when I hired an apprentice, I knew that part of that was going to be me learning too, that I was going to have to, you know, think about things in a lot of different ways that I hadn't even thought about. And what I realized is that a lot of what I do, I don't think about. I don't think about at all. I don't even, she would ask me something. I'm like, I don't know. It's a feeling.
Right. But, you know, it's tricky when you have to put this stuff into words, right? And, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the middle of a seminar explaining something and suddenly kind of ran out. It's like, maybe I don't actually know. I've had to say that out loud.
Yeah.
And talk about, whatever assumptions might be happening here and that kind of thing. Because it's important for people to understand, especially when it comes to art, that it's a very subjective process, and it's not an exact science. And a lot of it is about figuring out what your intentions and motivations are, and crafting art that fits that.
Yep. Well, and there are minimal rules and guidelines, like you stress, the fit, the flow, things like that are color dynamics. These are things that are core to just any good art. Like if you have a good piece of music and you have somebody who really knows, all the different ways to craft music, how to write it and all this stuff, they could probably bullet point for you why it is something that resonates with so many people, that makes it good. But you can very easily just stumble onto all those things too. So there are people who have like this natural talent for something that they don't even know half the reasons why it's good. You can sit there and be like, oh, it's this and this and this and this and this and this. And they're like, oh crap. I mean, I'll do it even with like going back to some of the stuff that when I was learning, and look at it and remember how I felt when I was doing it, and know that I felt like crap, like I was failing the whole time. And then now look at it and go, wow, this is really good. Like I did something here that was actually really cool. But you need that time.
At the time, it's hard not to have much higher expectations of ourselves. And, we know other people didn't start out perfect, but we expect maybe we'll be the Jedi that, is born into this, and, that our early efforts are going to just look wonderful. And it doesn't turn out that way usually. And it really does take a certain resilience. And I'm sure people quit early on just because they're not meeting their own expectations or comparing themselves to others, and making false comparisons that keep them from seeing their own progress.
I can tell you what helped me there was that I have never been cool in my entire life. I was unpopular as a kid. I was into a bunch of stuff that a lot of people didn't find fun or entertaining. Half of the stuff that other kids found fun, I felt was a bad use of time, or was dangerous, or was just not something I was interested in. And I've just never been cool. And I think that's really helped me too, is that I've kind of leaned hard into being a nerd and over analytical and a little too soapboxy for some people's, wants, or just people being like, you need to understand that most people are not like that. And I'm like, no, I do understand that. I'm full steam ahead. This bus is rolling and you can jump on or off. But I've never really cared about what other people, at least at this point in my life, and especially throughout learning, I got really defensive when people would overly try to push my face in my own shit. Because I was like, dude, what the, of course I'm going to suck right now. I'm starting out. Like, could you give me a break? Like, I remember one thing my boss said when I asked him a really stupid question. It was about like, he wanted me to go for something. And he's like, go to Target. And apparently a Target was just like right across the street, and it was like adjacent. And of course it has a Target on it, but I was so like focused on just getting to work and going, and because it was before the Target, I didn't look up past that. Like I just went to work. So I sit there and I go, well, where's the Target? And my boss looked at me and he was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? You're asking me, it's got a Target on it. Like, you don't know where Target is? He's like, I could fire you. And I just lashed back. I said, well, yeah, you could, but you'd be the first. Because I look, I'm not going to be upset at myself because I asked a dumb question. Okay, clearly the Target's right over there. Now I know. But like, dude, I'm here. I wasn't getting paid. I was standing over him. I was working a full-time job, trying to be a mentor to a whole other person, coming here. He's asking me to go get some shit that is not even tattoo related at Target. And I ask him where the target is and he says he can fire me. And I'm like, look, dude, cool, fire me then. Like, cause I'm here, so I asked you a dumb question. Okay. Like, get over it.
So I'd love to hear a few stories from the people you've interviewed. Like, for example, what are some of the dumbest reasons or more interesting reasons you've heard for people having their apprenticeships terminated?
Having their apprenticeships terminated. Oh, well, I mean, I know of a couple from my personal experience, just having watched it. We had this one girl that she just couldn't. I think a lot of it was just she needed to teach herself. She really wasn't. She wasn't kind of cool with a lot of coaching. Like the information just wasn't going to go in. And like, for example, she'd be sitting there watching YouTube videos of people doing black and gray portraits. Okay. And then I was like, why are you watching this? And I'm not her mentor, but I just wanted to ask her, like, why are you watching this? She goes, oh, I really want to do black and gray portraits. I said, well, how many portraits do you actually do? Like a longhand? Like, have you drawn a portrait? Well, no. Okay, well, you got to start there first. You know, like you can't just jump right into doing black and gray portraits. I was like, well, what happens if like your stencil, like you lose your stencil? That happens all the time. What happens then? You know, because if I lose my stencil, I have the art skills to make up the difference there. Like I know how to do portraits. I've done portraits, you know, so show me a portfolio that shows me that you are moving towards portraiture, but you can't just sit here in front of a YouTube screen and think that by watching somebody do portraits, you're somehow going to know how to do a portrait.
Yeah, I think that there's this mistaken thought among some people that drawing or art skills and tattoo skills are two independent skill sets. And really they have no idea. I mean, you can have a fairly basic skill set for tattooing and have stellar drawing skills, and you can do some very nice tattooing. You know what I mean? You can have incredible tattoo skills and an inability to draw. And if you don't have a stencil to work from, you're gonna have a very hard time doing a good tattoo, even though it might be smooth and solid. Right. So, you know, they're not independent, or they shouldn't be, you know.
Right.
And like when we do our Monday night exercises, I always try to ask people to visualize a body part, you know, so they could imagine, you know, how would they lay it out there? How would they make it flow? Is it going to be centered in a back or a chest, in which case you'll have this symmetry that you could work with? Or is this going to be an upper arm where it'll be more elongated and you'll have these certain muscle masses? You know, sometimes we keep it pretty general, and I'll say this is going to be like a 3/4 kind of view body part, either side of a thigh or rib panel, you know, because that's different from a front or a back. And I don't know. I mean, this is just a habit I've gotten into. Even when I'm just painting on canvas for the sake of painting, I'm always kind of flowing the way I would if I were designing for the skin. So the less they think of them independently, I think the better, you know. So when they're practicing drawing portraits on paper, they're practicing tattooing portraits.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And honestly, through Gabe and you and all of these things that you guys have put on together since I was an apprentice, because that was one of the things that I experienced. So this is a little story. So my boss and the people that I worked with knew about Tattoo Now and, you know, reinventing the tattoo. I think one of them even has your book, Guy, when it was a book. And the Paradise events and tattoo conventions that got put on, we actually went. And so I went to one of the first, I don't know if it was one of the first, but it was a Jiminy Peak art gathering through Paradise Art Gathering. And because I had such an extensive history in formal art education, because I dropped out of MICA, which is the Maryland Institute College of Art. And I went to a magnet school before that for art. So I had a very deep knowledge of formal art education. So none of that was allowed to shine in my tattoo apprenticeship at all. Like I got beaten back with a stick with anything that I thought that I knew, because in truth, when it comes down to tattooing, those things are completely different. And you do have to kind of become a baby again in your experience when you're learning to tattoo, and you do have to eventually fuse those things together once you're to that point. But I was never allowed to have like my art abilities shine within that until I went to the Paradise Artist Gathering. I think it was an artist gathering, and I was just sitting there painting, and I believe your wife even came up to me at one point and said, "Wow, I really like your paintings." And there was all these tattoo artists that were coming up to me. I didn't know any of you. I had no idea about any of you, and it was pissing my boss off and all of the other people, because I was getting seen in this space where I could finally shine. And I was so locked in. I had Busta Rhymes on repeat. I didn't leave the fucking art room. I made like 6 paintings that weekend. And I got FaceTime from so many people now that like, they probably wouldn't even talk to me now because they're so big. But like I was recognized because of just my art, and what I realized was, at least through everything that you, Gabe, and this kind of group of tattoo artists has put out, has been very foundational in art. So I've always felt at home within the kind of things that you guys have already always taught, because it fused everything together. It didn't say, oh, well, you gotta learn this here, and then you gotta learn this here, and none of that's matters. Shut off your brain and don't ask dumb questions. No, it was like, okay, you can be recognized because you're a good artist. Let's see what we can do there. And it also wasn't competitive, which I have come to realize. Like I said with the Kelly example, I don't have to compete with you, Guy. Even if I did biomechanical, even if I tried, I'm not you and you're not me. So what I'm going to bring to the table is going to be completely different than you. And that's great, because I can make this my own thing, and I can brand what I give to my clients completely different than yours, even if the tattoos look similar. As long as they walk away going like, oh my God, I love my tattoo, it's awesome, and let me tell you about my artist, it's so great, like they're that you're not competing with anybody when it's about that. But when you make it just about like the tattoo or the caliber or how many styles you know how to do, then you end up starting to compete. Then you become a Walmart of the tattoo industry, like a one-stop shop where it's all about like what you can do, when you can do it, how fast. You become this commodity instead of an artist. And when people, I think, buy into art, they're buying into a lot of things. They're buying into an experience. They're taking a break from their everyday life, and they kind of want to be a part of something different and special, and all of those things. And I don't know, just every time I've been in this space with these kind of creatives and the reinventing the tattoo crowd, I've seen a collaboration. I've seen the want to share ideas and not exclude, and how can we deliver more to people and let them pick up what they do and what they don't want to. And it's not been pushy. It's been very, come ask, we'll tell you what we got, but it hasn't been nasty. And I did experience a lot of just, maybe my ego needed it. I'm fine with that. Like, I don't know everything, but I do know a lot. I do come from a lot. And at least at this point in my life, I'm willing to say it, because I do. I've been through things that other people haven't been through. Like you said in the beginning, I have I'm still a master barber. I'm a little dated as far as like when the last time I did it, but I'm still a master barber. I still know that world. My dad still is a barber too. And I come from a small business family. Like, I have a lot of insights that I came to the table with, that it's weird to me that I would have to benchmark that and shut the fuck up. That's weird. And whenever I see that on Facebook groups where people are like, shut up to the apprentice, you don't know anything. I'm like, whoa, this looks to be a person in like their 30s. I'm pretty sure they know something. Like, they can comment, like, you know, they've already said they're apprentice, so they've already stated their line of knowledge here, but don't assume they don't have anything else to give. Like, that's silly. And it's not really a good thing to do as a leader, I think, because...
Well, you know, stifling questions or, you know, a questioning mindset is only serves the purpose of stroking the egos of people in the ivory towers, right? Mm-hmm. And being open to, you know, that kind of query or that kind of, you know, polite challenging from, you know, like when people ask you, you know, exactly why are you doing it? Or how long will that last? Or have you seen how that would age? Or, you know, things like that. It might sound a little bit like you're being challenged, and not everybody's going to take that very well. And, you know, there's a difference between that and a troll comment, right? And, you know, there's a fine line there, but it really has to do with intention. And you can always tell, you know, the troll comments come from either anonymous, you know, profiles or just some dude that flexes a lot and doesn't have any tattoo work of his own that he has to show. And, you know, that's intended to rip people down, you know, where when someone who's an apprentice who might know less is asking questions, they might not be trying to question you. They might just be questioning the subject. There's a big difference.
Yeah, no, totally. Absolutely. And I actually did, I did walk away from a lot of good information, and not entirely. I mean, I think he thinks I walked away from more than I did, but there is a tattoo artist. He's very good, Paul Natale. Our friendship ended just because we didn't work well together. But the information that he tried to give me was always very sound. And in reflection, I'm kind of sad that I didn't respond to that as well as I should have. But there was always this competition, at least between him and I, because he had, like you said, casted away the ivory tower institutions long ago, and his foundation came grassroots from tattooing. And so his experience was like 12 years at the time, deep in tattoo culture. And he really, really, really got angry with me when I would stand behind what I knew from my own education and my own experience, which was vastly different. And so there was just this clash of like not respecting each other and not respecting where we came from, that I think made it very challenging for us to listen to one another at all. And of course, because he was a senior tattoo artist, I was supposed to be the little, you know, gracious, you know, humble, and I'm not that. I'm just not that fucking person. I'm not in any kind of way. I'm like the freedom fighter, like, you can't tell me what to do kind of person. And I'm not willing to just cachet everything that I at least think I know. So I remembered all of that. Like when I was teaching somebody, I remembered all of that. And I said, look, you know, you're a fortified adult in your own respect. You have your own credentials. And, you know, the goal for me is that I'm not going to unnecessarily haze you or do anything that is out of an alignment with making you a successful tattoo artist. That's key for me. The stuff that Paul gave me was about being a better tattoo artist than I was at the time, and telling me about some things that were about tattoo longevity, like you brought up. Like, he was always yelling at me, more black, you need more black. And of course, his work is so black and so not what I did that I couldn't even listen to that. And I needed to listen to that because my work did need more black. And I saw it come back to me later. But the thing that Paul didn't get, that I did get was that I do see, and I don't know if this is the case with Paul or not, but I felt like my client relationship was so good that I've seen a lot of that work come back. And a lot of the ones that I'm like, oh, I know that needs more black now. I'll ask the person, hey, I'll for free, I'll go back into it. I really will. I kind of want to do this for you because I didn't have certain knowledge then. And they'll look at me and they'll go, oh no, I don't want you to touch it. Like I love this. Like I love this. Never was this about getting a perfect tattoo. I hope you know. And so I was cultivating something that maybe Paul didn't get, maybe nobody outside of what me and my client were sharing. We were cultivating something together that now I see a lot of those people again, and they give me the opportunity to do more work, and for me, that's really a big thing.
There's a lot of parallels between that and Michelle's experience, because she does these, no outline color tattoos, and has gradually incorporated black, but she was not going to incorporate it the way that a traditional apprenticeship is going to tell you. She needed to arrive there her own way in her own time and figure out how to use it in a way that didn't disrupt the effect that she and her clients that keep coming back for 20 plus years prefer, right? And so, again, if you are able to, engender those kinds of relationships where they're coming back, then the longevity, obviously it's important, but at the same time, you will have a chance to see them again. And many times these clients would rather get it hit again in 20 years than get a tattoo they don't necessarily want, or that doesn't look the way that they want it because they've got a particular look that they're preferring.
Yeah. And I think that's something really important to note, is that we have a lot of things that are coming out that, people are speculating, will that last or whatever. And, my main argument, because I started out doing watercolor tattoos before that was something that was the world around, or many people were doing. And, the old heads were like, there's no way that's going to last, and, whatever. And the way I saw it was like, well, I just know people. I know people really well, because I know people so well to know that they don't get the same haircut over and over and over again. Like there's that person, but the majority of people want to spice it up. It might not be very often, but they want to switch, pivot, their lives change, they change. So as far as I was concerned, whether or not the tattoo lasted was not necessary. What was necessary was that this person had a lasting impression given to them by the tattoo experience that would let them hunt that experience again in the future. And maybe they might cover up the tattoo you did, or maybe they might add on to it. But if you do a tattoo outside of alignment of what they're asking for at that time, there might not be any hope for that person to even want a tattoo after that point, because you've scared them off so much.
Well, and important to note that with experience, you find out shapes made of color only depends on the color. Some of them actually do stay, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as you chalk up the years and decades, you start to be able to say, okay, I could reliably do a watercolor tattoo now. It might not look the same as somebody who doesn't have this knowledge would do it, right? It might look a little just more high contrast, and it might have some black snuck in there, but snuck in there, right? It doesn't have to have the outlines. And that those blues and purples and turquoises are really not going to budge. Those greens and magentas are going to get a lot lighter. So you overshoot your darkness on those, and you don't count on them for the important shades, etc. Right? You learn these things. But I think for a lot of us, no matter how much we're told, there's only so much that we're going to realize about tattooing before we start seeing it come back after it's settled for a few years. There's a reality check that happens there. And for me, 33 years in, it keeps happening, because I move along and I try something different. It's like, okay, well, that was too low contrast and it looks like the detail fell out. So what if I do it this way? And then I'll need to see how that settles with time. And, it's a very long process. It makes me wish I could live a lot longer, but well, there's other reasons for that too. But
right.
we're going on an hour, and I wanted to, shift back to your podcast just a little bit. I know you're giving this podcast partly because you want to help apprentices, and I'm curious to know. It's kind of a dual question. What is it that they seem to be challenged by the most? Like, are there some common themes there? And what is it that you are hoping to be able to offer in your podcast?
Good question. I hear the most, as far as me, a lot of people going, I've asked everybody locally for an apprenticeship. I'm not able to get an apprenticeship. And basically, how do I get one? And because it's rare. And I remember that want to get one, and that door-to-door kind of thing. What I'm hoping to do with the podcast is give people some understanding that they're not alone within that's very common. And I'm also hoping to outline what I feel is more of a modern day acquisition of an apprenticeship, because in my experience, at least in offering apprenticeships to people, I've offered them. And you have to kind of put yourself out there as an attractive offer for people to, I feel at this point, be willing to take their time and energy teaching you something. One of the things that I think is necessary is more of a online presence today than ever was before. Really showcasing that you're looking to, at the very least, do your artwork professionally. And more than that, the people that I've offered were already selling themselves as professional artists already. So I saw an intense want to make art and sell it already in the people, and they were producing stuff like that. So I guess the thing that I want to put out there is that if you're not aligning with the things that you want, don't get mad at the thing itself. I remember with me, I got so mad. I got mad that there wasn't tattoo schools. I got mad. I was like, there needs to be tattoo schools. Like there needs to be this. The thing that I'm thinking in the background, this is when I can stop juggling and actually see straight and even manage my podcast, which is every day it's something new. What I'd like to see, and maybe reinventing, I mean, they're already kind of doing it, is maybe a middle ground, that if there is formulated tattoo schools or something like that, that we recognize that as like an in-between maybe qualification to getting an apprenticeship, but really trying to help people understand what will be the things that get them an apprenticeship. What kind of attitude, what kind of artwork, what kind of any of it, and keep that a moving scale and a moving observance, much like reinventing the tattoo. Like, it's a progression. It's constant, and you realize you had to do that.
So what do you say to somebody who would then respond, there's just simply nobody in my area, and then starts listing all the big name artists who are self-taught, because there are quite a few of them.
Right.
What do you say to them?
I say start tattooing yourself then, I guess. Here's the thing is that one of the biggest things that I'm glad you asked that, in all of these pursuits that we have as professionals, to try to integrally inform legacy and try to teach from a place of love of our profession, we need to keep in mind that we're never going to stop the person that's going to do it in their basement. No matter how much regulation is set before us, that person will always be, and that person is always going to do that. So for me, it's really important. If somebody says, well, I have to learn from this space, the most important things that I have to tell that person is, please, for the love of God, understand about bloodborne pathogen before you do it, because you could hurt yourself and you definitely could hurt other people. But within this, you can hurt yourself immensely, because we're dealing with things that are about opening up the body and opening up the bloodstream, causing potentially infections and things like that, which our industry itself hasn't gotten all the answers to. So if you're going to learn this from that point, please make sure that at the very least, you're making sure that you're not becoming an issue to the grand public, because when it comes down to regulation, that's really what it's about. Like, it's not about getting a good haircut or a good tattoo. It's pretty much like, we don't want there to be a legal fallout from this that is, massively going to be hurting a bunch of people.
Right.
So a lot of that stuff has to come down to, like, please don't infect people with stuff that's going to be a systemic problem that's going to lead into other things that are really going to fuck up legacy.
Right. So what I would like to say is, in these cases, you have pre-existing art skills, or you're working very hard on them. You're learning everything you can about tattooing. You might even have the equipment, and you cannot find an apprenticeship that is worth crap. Let's say you can't move because your ex and their kid are in town or whatever. Okay. So that, in fact, I know of this exact situation, many cases of it. And so there you are, right? And you're learning on your own. What I recommend is try as hard as you can to develop connections with other artists, locally if possible. For example, Steve Butcher, he's self-taught, but he ended up finding a couple of artists in New Zealand that would critique his work, would give him honest answers, were interested in seeing how he would develop and would comment. That's really important. If you can afford it at all, try to either get to a convention or go to an artist that you admire and get tattooed by them. You'd be surprised at what you might be able to get out of that experience besides just getting tattooed. Bring your portfolio. Be prepared to tell them about what you're struggling with, the fact that you can't find an apprenticeship, whether or not you're willing to relocate. Maybe not start the conversation with that. Wait until they at least have enough time with you to know that they like you. But you have to not be shy about this stuff. You really have to put yourself out there. You need to try to make those connections. And I hate to say this, you will get attention from somebody if you are paying them $800 for a tattoo, right? You're going to have some hours of their time, right? And if you're sincere, you're coming from the right place, you're truly working hard to better yourself as an artist and develop these skills, they would rather see you succeed than fail, I promise you.
No, I think that's great insight. And truly, it's I guess a point of a lot of abundance for me that I didn't recognize that, but like, that's a lot of what Tattooed Heart, like I said earlier, gave me, was that right away they were really into all of you guys, and I got this amazing look at all of these famous tattoo artists, or at least growing tattoo artists, or they were doing really cool things. Going and knowing who Jeff Gogwe is, and seeing you guys and meeting you and going to these events. In the beginning, a lot of it was, going to seminars and stuff like that. So definitely, I 100% agree. Like, go to seminars, go to tattoo conventions, all of those things you can't be shy about. And again, I guess I kind of looked over it just because it was that was all the time at my dad's hair salon. Like, if he wanted me to be the front end person, which I did that job for a while, he sent me to a receptionist seminar where I got to learn all this different stuff about how to be a receptionist. And I guess it was just something that I negated as like, oh, well, this is what you do. Like, you know, if you're going to go into a profession, you know, you go and you check out a seminar. And typically with therapy too, just FYI, when you go to a therapist, you're in this headspace of just flailing, you know, like you can't see beyond anything. And so usually with my therapist, she would throw out something that was so simple and so obvious to solve my problem that I just couldn't even see because I'm like drowning. That I couldn't even believe I couldn't see, but usually that was the thing that I needed to do, that I just needed somebody else to tell me, and remind me that like, oh yeah, I can problem solve this. So a lot of it is like hearing the stuff you kind of already know. That was honestly a lot of Jeff Gogwe's seminars, was just me kind of validating myself, being like, oh, cool. Yeah. Like, yeah, you know that. Like, that's cool. Like, so a lot of it is just finding your own gumption and allowing yourself to not kind of get in your own way in a lot of things too. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a lot about the connections. It's a lot about having community, being able to ask those questions, even if it isn't directly there for you in a legit apprenticeship. I think that's essential. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we are going to have to wrap this up soon, but when can people tune into your podcast and where can they find you?
We're the only place that we're currently not on is, well, we're on there's so many platforms out there. We're on every place that you can find podcasts audibly, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We're just not on anything that's visual yet. I haven't moved to any kind of visual platform, so no YouTube or VMO or anything like that yet. No, I don't think TikTok's ever going to see me. I don't know, but that's where you can find the podcast. Typically, except for this week because we had technical difficulties, I try to air on Mondays. At some point on Mondays, I try to put out our next one. Though this week, as I said, they're probably going to see later tonight the podcast that's going to release. And most of the time it's interviews. Some of the times it's admissions that we didn't get anything. And I have to be vulnerable in front of my crowd and say, I'm flailing here. And this is my own apprenticeship journey in itself. So you'll get the smattering of things. So if you ever wanted to start a podcast and hear somebody very openly admit that they don't know what they're doing, you can listen to my podcast and you can hear it too, that I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, how are you going to learn it without doing it, right?
Exactly. So that's it.
Right.
But it's fun, and I'm having a great time. I'm learning a lot, and I'm happy that there will be this evolution of my experience out there. Again, legacy, what we're putting out into the world. I'm happy that I'll be able to look back on this and be like, wow.
All right. Well, as we develop the apprenticeship program that we're adding to Reinventing the Tattoo, we'll definitely be consulting you and your followers.
Awesome.
Love to put it out there that we are adding an apprentice program to Reinventing the Tattoo, and it's going to consist of a number of extra things. For starters, right off the bat, hopefully starting this coming week, we'll have apprentice exercises every week. And these, I think a lot of apprentices and tattooers whose art skills are less developed are feeling intimidated about the Monday night exercises because there's some really nice work being done there, and they should show up anyway. But these apprentice exercises are specifically meant for people who are really just trying to get on their feet with the basics of composition. It's a great place to, actually get feedback as you're drawing and ask those important questions that you might not otherwise know where to ask them. So, keep an eye out on the event schedule and in your Reinventing app, and we'll see those as we start scheduling them.
I'm excited.
Gabe, is there anything that we need to know of in the chat room?
It's actually me here. So
hey.
great to hear from you guys. Yeah, we've had a couple questions about using tech. So I guess Amada said, I think keep using tech. Pretty soon you'll be out of work going to the tech machine with some kind of laser or roboting, like one of those virtual printers. That was an interesting comment that was made there on the Facebook. Also, Colty has been watching through, Colty 1992 has been watching on YouTube, and he's excited to be involved. He just received his apprenticeship, kind of like an all or nothing attitude getting it. So he's been enjoying watching you guys talk, and great insight, he says.
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember when I was living and breathing it. I mean, it never really stops, but there's that period where you just can't absorb enough, you know. So it's exciting period to be in. And yeah, hopefully this was a helpful interview.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll be hearing more. Again, you can check out the event schedule in your Reinventing app. It's the first button, and that app is free at the Reinventing the Tattoo, either at the App Store or at the Google Play Store. Anyway,
it's been a good time.
You all have a great day. Yeah, thanks again for your time.
Definitely. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you,
It's
Lauren.
been awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers.